looking for you. Scooby Doo, where are you? All the stars are here, waiting for you. Couldn't have a show without you. Scooby, Scooby-Doo, Scooby, Scooby-Doo.
Hello, Scooby Doo fans! Welcome to my Season 1 Episode 10 review of the new Scooby Doo Movies. So last time I continued my 2024 summer special with the release of my Season 1 Episode 5 re-review of Scooby Doo, Where Are You? So I hope you guys enjoyed that. But of course today, I'll be covering Season 1 Episode 10 of the new Scooby Doo Movies, titled The Ghost of Bigfoot, which was released on November 11th, 1972. The short synopsis of the episode is, on a ski trip to a lodge in Vermont, the gang meet up with Laurel and Hardy, who are trying to get a job. But when they discover that the ghost of Bigfoot is on the loose, they team up to capture him. So today's guest stars are Laurel and Hardy. Now, Laurel and Hardy are very old school, really old school type of guest stars. So if you're someone my age or younger, you're probably not going to be familiar with Laurel and Hardy. Unless if you're like someone who's into really classic film, like the silent film era and, early sound era, or if you're someone who was around in the 60s or 70s and grew up on Laurel and Hardy movies, you might know who Laurel and Hardy are. But just in case if you guys don't know who Laurel and Hardy are, here's a quick rundown of who Laurel and Hardy are. So Laurel and Hardy were a British-American comedy team during the silent film era of Hollywood. They did, however, successfully transition to the sound era of Hollywood and were popular internationally for their slapstick comedy from the late 1920s up until the mid-1950s. Stan Laurel was born on June 16, 1890 in Ulverston, Lancashire. And Oliver Hardy was born on January 18th, 1892 in Harlem, Georgia. Laurel and Hardy began their career in film with their first short film, The Lucky Dog, which was released in 1921. Since that point, Laurel and Hardy did many films, both American films in Hollywood and films internationally in other countries. But I'll just go over the most memorable ones, or the ones that are referenced a lot in their filmography. So other memorable roles that they have include The Music Box, which is a short comedy film from 1932, Babes in Toyland, which is a Christmas musical film from 1934, Way Out West, which is a comedy film from 1937, Helpmates, which is a short comedy film from 1932, Another Fine Mess, which is a short comedy film from 1930. Sons of the Desert, which is an American comedy film from 1933. Blockheads, which is also an American comedy film from 1938. Busybodies, which is a short comedy film from 1933. And Toad in a Hole, which is a comedy film from 1932. After a long film career and Laurel and Hardy trying to get into radio, which I don't know if it successfully happened or not. It didn't seem like it did, but it seemed like they tried to. Oliver Hardy unfortunately passed away on August 7th, 1957. And then Stan Laurel would also pass away on February 23rd, 1965, almost a decade later. Now, just before Stan Laurel's death, in 1961, a man named Larry Harmon, who was a merchandiser, purchased the rights to the likenesses of Laurel and Hardy, and he used it to, kind of issue toys and coloring books of the duo. And then, in 1966, a year after Stan Laurel had passed away, he decided to co-produce an animated Hanna-Barbera cartoon based on the duo, simply just called the Laurel and Hardy cartoon, which ran from 1966 to 1967, and it had a total of 1 season and 156 episodes. The reason there's so many episodes is because they're 5 minutes long. It's a 5-minute short episodes, so that's why there's tons of them. However, the cartoon wasn't really received well by, critics and audiences, as people thought it was like a pale imitation of the real Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy. So this cartoon didn't take off. I should also mention that since Laurel and Hardy had both passed away by the time this cartoon had been made, they were both voiced by different voice actors. So Stan Laurel was voiced by Larry Harmon himself, who was the merchandiser and purchased the rights. And Oliver Hardy was voiced by Jim McGeorge. So at the time of this episode, Laurel and Hardy had been off the air for a couple of years, and this was probably an opportunity, like a last-ditch effort, to see if there was any renewed interest in this version of Laurel and Hardy. It obviously must have not been successful, since Laurel and Hardy did not get another cartoon until I think in the late 90s, where Larry Harmon did try one more time to get it like an animated film made, but I don't think it took off. So yeah, basically this was probably a last-ditch effort from Hanna-Barbera and Larry Harmon to see if Laurel and Hardy could potentially get a new cartoon riding off the coattails of Scooby Doo. Despite how popular this episode is, it must have not done well enough for people to really be interested in it. Or maybe Hanna-Barbera just didn't have enough faith in another Laurel and Hardy cartoon since the first one was poorly received. I should also mention that the voice actors of Laurel and Hardy have both passed away at the time of recording this. So Larry Harmon passed away on July 3rd, 2008. And Jim McGeorge passed away on January 16th, 2021, which was just recently, and he was like 92 years old, so he lived a very long life. Now, what's my experience with Laurel and Hardy? I'm honestly not that big of a fan of the duo. They are way too old school for me. Like, I'm not really someone who I'm open if there's good movies. Usually Sherlock Holmes is the only one that I'll go back for that time period, like, the early 1900s, like the silent film era and the early sound era. And I'm not denouncing those classics. Obviously there's a lot of people out there who love those. For me, I'm not someone that, is that interested going that far back into the past. Specifically Laurel and Hardy, I've not been too familiar with them. I've not heard them a lot. And that's really because of how old school they are, and they kind of dwindled out probably after the 60s and 70s. And yeah, I'm not familiar with any of their work, but I do want to ask you guys, what's your experience with Laurel and Hardy? You like them as a duo? Are you big fans of them? Do you think they're good guest stars in this episode? Or are you like me and you're not that huge of fans of them, and you're just you're just kind of like unfamiliar with their work? So as per usual, I'll be watching Season 1, Episode 10 of the new Scooby Doo Movies on the new Scooby Doo Movies, the Almost Complete Collection. This DVD has every episode of the new Scooby Doo Movies, minus the Addams Family episode, which I've talked about plenty of times before. So if you want to know why, you can check that out for that review. Now, as far as how this episode is received, I've seen most fans regard this episode as one of the better episodes of the new Scooby Doo Movies. I've seen it praised highly. People seem to like this episode. And the Scooby Doo community views it highly. So why don't we take a look at the episode to see whether I think it is a good or bad episode of the new Scooby Doo Movies. The episode begins with Scooby, Shaggy, Fred, Daphne, and Velma driving down a snow-lined road in Vermont. They're heading to Mackinac Lodge, which is a popular ski resort. At the same time, Laurel and Hardy are driving to the same resort, but when they have car trouble, Mr. Ink gives them a lift. The gang is more than glad to welcome the famous Laurel and Hardy duo. The reason Laurel and Hardy need a lift is because they have their car crashed thanks to Bigfoot. The ghost of Bigfoot pushes a giant snowball towards them, which causes them to crash. Also, like I said in the intro, Laurel and Hardy are there not for skiing, but rather to find jobs. Once they arrive there, the ski lodge seems deserted upon investigation, but once inside, the gang and Laurel and Hardy meet the manager, Kaylee Burgess. Kaylee Burgess explains the reason why the lodge is so empty. He explains the legend of the ghost of Bigfoot, which is supposedly a mountain man that froze in a snowstorm years ago. And he's been the one that's been scaring guests away. Burgess even says that guests have been scared off by numerous things. Some have been scared by his story, others have been scared in the middle of the night, and some have just disappeared without any trace. And now the only guest left in the resort besides the gang and Laurel and Hardy is Jonathan Crabtree, who's an elderly man in the wheelchair. He also has a chauffeur with him. The gang unpack and get ready for bed in their rooms, and Laurel and Hardy are able to secure jobs as bellhops since the resort lacks any help. However, Bigfoot keeps appearing and popping in and out, and there's a cat and mouse game that ensues between Bigfoot and Daphne and Velma and the males of the group, Fred, Shaggy, Scooby, Laurel, and Hardy. He keeps popping up outside in Velma and Daphne's window. He pops up in Laurel and Hardy's medicine cabinet. He doesn't go in Fred, Shaggy, and Scooby's room. However, Fred, Shaggy, and Scooby do still encounter him when a cat and mouse chase ensues afterwards. Bigfoot, though, proceeds to finally escape and flee out the window, and he leaves no footprints, leaving the gang to possibly believe that Bigfoot might actually be a ghost. I think the cat and mouse chase between Fred, Shaggy, Scooby, Laurel and Hardy with the Bigfoot is a very entertaining chase scene. We get to see them trying to capture Bigfoot in the hotel, and while also being scared off and thwarted. And it's just a fun little chase scene. And them being brave for the female members of the gang, who are kind of like damsels in distress in this episode, Daphne and Velma.
There he goes! Hey, he went into our room! Let's head him off! Disappeared again, but at least we know one thing.
What's that?
He's not just a ghost. Bigfoot's for real.
The next day, the gang decide to get some skiing done, and Laurel, Hardy, and all of Mr. Ink head up to the mountain and have a blast skiing. In the process, though, they meet a suspicious and spooky ski instructor called Hans Otherwise, who tries to teach Shaggy and Scooby how to ski, since we learned earlier in the episode that Shaggy and Scooby don't know how to ski. Also, the gang are very tired because they had trouble, getting any sleep because of Bigfoot. So they're all on edge, and the skiing kind of helps, ease their nerves a little bit. I do like the ski and sled scene of Laurel and Hardy and Shaggy and Scooby, as we get a lot of shenanigans and hijinks, and it's just fun, good Scooby Doo comedy. And also Laurel and Hardy comedy as well.
Now come out of there. Oh, Stanley, do something. Hey! Help! I can't see! Me too!
such scheme?
Bigfoot? That's not Bigfoot, fellas. It's Mr. Hardy.
Thanks for the ride, Ollie. That was fun. Can we go back up and do it again?
Back at the lodge, Laurel and Hardy discover that Mr. Crabtree has disappeared, and so they ask Fred, Daphne, and Velma, and Shaggy and Scooby as well, for help. So Fred, Daphne, Velma, Shaggy, Scooby, Laurel, and Hardy all split up to look for Mr. Crabtree, with Fred, Daphne, Velma, and Hardy going one way, and Shaggy, Scooby, and Laurel going another way. However, while they're looking for Mr. Crabtree, Bigfoot appears and chases Shaggy, Scooby, and Laurel before making his getaway. Scooby finds a dropped piece of paper with a list of letters and numbers scrawled on the paper. Fred notes that these look like license plate numbers, and so Fred digs a little deeper, and so the next day he finds out from the police that these license plate numbers were from stolen cars. Which is actually pretty cool. We get to see Fred do a little bit of detective work and, piece together some clues. Not that he hasn't done that before, but I just like seeing that showcased in this episode, because we haven't seen it in a while. The gang travel towards an area that Fred thinks the stolen cars may be hidden at, and Bigfoot drives a tractor trailer full of stolen cars and passes them by. Not wanting to lose Bigfoot, the gang, along with Laurel and Hardy, follow the truck to an old junkyard where the gang begins examining all the cars. All the cars seem to have no license plates and are late models, as pointed out by both Fred and Shaggy. They search the office of the junkyard and find a film projector. Fred turns it on, and it projects an image of Bigfoot running away into the snow, like the gang saw out of their lodge window the night before, or a couple nights before. And now they know why Bigfoot made no footprints in the snow when they saw him out of his window, because it was a film projection. Bigfoot, however, appears and tries to flee, but Laurel, Hardy, Shaggy, and Scooby chase him in a snowmobile. The snowmobile chase scene is very fun because Shaggy and Scooby are holding onto a ladder that has Laurel on top of it, since Bigfoot was at the second second floor of the office, and they needed someone to go check out who it was. And they found out it was Bigfoot, and then Bigfoot somehow ran away, and Hardy, drove the snowmobile, and then we got a lot of shenanigans with the four of them, and it was just good fun.
There. Shag, Scooby, you help hold it. Stanley, you can climb up.
Do I have to, Ollie?
Of course you have to.
You're right, Ollie. It's Bigfoot.
Bigfoot?
Jinkies, he's gone out the back. He's getting away.
We'll get him. Hang on, Stan. We're gaining on him.
They follow Bigfoot right to a sawmill, and upon entrance, the gang begins to search for Bigfoot. Daphne and Velma decide to stay outside and get some help, while Fred, Shaggy, Scooby, Laurel, and Hardy look around the sawmill. They follow the footprints right to a dead end, but Scooby unintentionally hits a lever after he sneezes because of the dust on the floor. And they find a secret door. They continue through the secret passageway, and Bigfoot appears and chases the four boys around the machinery room. Finally, though, they're able to trap Bigfoot, and Velma and Daphne appear along with Hans Otherwise, who turns out to be with the authorities. He's an undercover cop or detective. Bigfoot is then unmasked as Jonathan Crabtree, who faked the wheelchair act and dressed up as Bigfoot to scare everyone away from the lodge so he could operate his stolen car business. He was using springs and stilts to make himself taller, and Crabtree was arrested soon after. I like the final chase scene because we get to see Fred being proactive and chasing the ghost of Bigfoot. Scooby unintentionally captures Bigfoot, and we get to learn who's behind the mask and what their motive was, thanks to Fred explaining what the motive of the villain was.
Wait here. It might be a trap.
Hang on, we're headed for the paint bats.
Look out! He's coming back! Good work, Scoob. You got him!
Stay right there, Bigfoot. You're under arrest.
What happened to Yaun skiing?
He's a police officer. He was gathering evidence on Bigfoot's scheme to sell stolen cars with real plates.
What I want to know is where's Mr. Crabtree?
Scooby knows. He figured it out from those funny footprints. Didn't you, Scoob?
Uh-huh.
Why, he's just a little man.
A little man named Crabtree.
Uh-huh.
He wanted to scare everybody away so he could run his stolen car factory without being discovered.
Laurel and Hardy are continuing as bellhops, and the gang decide to stay another week because of the wonderful skiing, but the lodge becomes packed with guests. One thing that I find funny is that every time Laurel is very direct, and he, says, we're bellhops, Hardy gets really frustrated and annoyed, and it always makes me laugh. These two had a lot of funny moments throughout the episode. They were hilarious. And the episode ends with Mr. Burgess then making an exception due to the heroics of Scooby. I'm going to give Season 1, Episode 10 of the new Scooby Doo Movies 4 stars out of 5. So yeah, I thought this was a really good episode. I actually really enjoyed this episode. I do have some negatives with it, as obviously indicated by my score. But I overall really liked this episode, and it's definitely a good successor to the previous episode. We've had 2 4 out of 5s, back to back. So we've been on a streak of pretty good episodes from the Sandy Duncan episode up until now. It's been pretty good. We've been hitting some good episodes, so hopefully it'll stay that way. But since this is a 4 out of 5 episode, we'll start off with the negatives of the episode and what holds this episode back from being a 5 out of 5 episode. The first negative I had with the episode is that I didn't find Daphne and Velma to be great in this episode. I consider them weak and very underutilized. They felt more like damsels in distress and less like they had any involvement with the mystery. Velma didn't do any piecing together of the clues. That was mostly Fred. Fred did a lot of the heavy lifting in this episode for the mystery. Daphne didn't really have any big moments either. And so they just kind of felt like they were, damsels in distress, which is nothing wrong with that. But I would have liked some moments where they were, had some involvement in something. I don't mind them being, girls are going to be afraid, so I don't mind them being afraid. That's not the issue. It's I don't need them to be tough, or anything. I just need, some moments for them to shine. Like maybe Velma solving, the mystery, maybe Daphne finding some clues, stuff like that, something that helps the mystery or helps forward the plot in some meaningful way. And I didn't feel like Daphne and Velma provided that, so I was very unimpressed with the girls of Mystery Inc. in this episode. Wasn't happy with the utilization of Daphne and Velma. Thought they could have been a lot better. Next, I found Jonathan Crabtree outside of costume to be very uninteresting. We saw him for one scene in a wheelchair with his chauffeur, and it's not known whether his chauffeur had anything to do with it. So we don't know if his chauffeur was completely innocent and had nothing to do with the plot, or if he did have something to do with the villain plot and he got arrested sometime afterwards. I don't know. The episode doesn't explain what happened to his chauffeur, but Jonathan Crabtree outside of costume was very uninteresting. Very boring, we just kind of got introduced to him, and that was it. There was nothing else besides that. We just knew that he existed, But he didn't, like, do anything like Kaylee Burgess did, which was tell the legend of the monster or any sort of thing like that, right? At any interesting moments. So, yeah, pretty uninteresting outside of costume. And my final negative is that I struggled to find any mystery in this episode. What exactly is the mystery of this episode? If anybody can help me with that, that'd be great. But in my mind, I don't really see what the mystery is. The closest I see is what happened to Jonathan Crabtree, you know, when his disappearance happens. But that didn't happen until halfway through the episode. Maybe you could be like, what happened to the disappearing guest? But it just didn't feel like there was enough, like, for the gang to be like, they want to know the answers to that question. It felt less like a mystery and more like they were just being good citizens, good average Joes, and just wanted to help find this missing person. There wasn't really much of a mystery here, you know, asking questions on what, you know, who's this and what's that, you know, like there wasn't really any questions that we needed answered in this episode. And I didn't really see any sort of mystery in this episode, so I failed to see what exactly the mystery is. And so in my mind, I don't think there's really any mystery in this episode. It feels more like an adventure that the gang are just trying to find this missing person with Laurel and Hardy. Now, a mystery adventure can be good, but I still want a mystery of some sorts. I still need a mystery of some sorts, or otherwise it's not Scooby Doo. I need something to ponder my mind, like what happened to this person, you know. Why are they doing this? You know, I had none of those questions throughout this episode. So, yeah, I just didn't see any mystery in this episode. If anybody wants to tell me what it is, I'd be glad to hear you out. But to me, I didn't see any mystery in the episode, and it just felt more like an adventure with Laurel and Hardy where they tried to find someone. Which, like I said, a mystery adventure is fine. I just need some type of mystery. That's all. Like, I just need something because that's Scooby-Doo. I need some type of mystery that I want to solve. Otherwise, it just makes it, you know, it doesn't feel like Scooby-Doo. So, that's all I got for negatives, though. So I think it's about time we get on to the positives of the episode and what makes this episode really good in my mind. We'll start off with Fred. Fred was the best part of this episode. He was fantastic in this episode. Not only was he a great leader and helped lead the way, he was really good at piecing together the clues and solving the mystery, you know, looking at the list of license plate numbers, digging a little bit deeper, you know, asking the authorities, you know, what do these numbers mean, and finding out that they're stolen license plates, which helps the gang more because now they might know a possible motive, and then they find the film projector and all that, and, you know, Fred was just very proactive and very brave. And he did a lot of great things in this episode. He played off the guest stars well. You know, he did everything right in this episode, and I really enjoy Fred in this episode. I think Fred was done well. I think he got the most to do out of all the members of the gang. Fred was great. Shaggy was his usual cowardly self. However, he was a bit proactive and brave when he needed to be, such as when the girls were in trouble and they needed help, or when the other guys needed help catching Bigfoot. Shaggy helped with that, and so I felt like Shaggy was a bit proactive and brave when he needed to be. He wasn't really humorous in this episode. He didn't really have many jokes in this episode. I think Laurel and Hardy kind of stole that from them. I think Laurel and Hardy had more of the humor of the episode than Shaggy and Scooby did. But I think that's okay, because Shaggy and Scooby did fulfill some type of role in this episode. They still did something. Like, Shaggy was still a bit proactive and brave in certain moments, and he was his usual cowardly self. So, like, I was happy with how Shaggy was utilized, and we got to learn that he didn't ski, and he got to learn how to ski, which is also cool. Like, you know, he got to learn something new on this trip that he didn't know before. I really like how Shaggy was in this episode. He was brave and proactive when he needed to be, when the girls needed help, or when the other guys needed help catching Bigfoot. He was right there. He was right behind them. He helped them all the way. So Shaggy was a good friend in this episode. And Scooby was also a bit brave and proactive, just like Shaggy was. Like Shaggy, Scooby also helped the girls when they needed help, and he also helped the other fellas, the other guys, when they needed help catching Bigfoot. But he was the one that ultimately helped capture Bigfoot, when Bigfoot tripped over whatever Scooby knocked over. And he found the clue earlier with the list of license plates, and without that, they wouldn't have figured out the motive, and that wouldn't have debunked that Bigfoot was not really a ghost. So Scooby did a lot in this episode. Not only was he a bit brave and proactive, but he helped find a clue. He, helped catch Bigfoot. He helped the other guys when they needed help, and he made sure the girls were safe as well. So I like Scooby in this episode. I thought he was great. Like Shaggy, I thought he got a lot to do, and I was really happy with how Scooby was utilized in this episode. Then we have the guest stars, Laurel and Hardy. Laurel and Hardy were great guest stars in this episode. I was actually really amazed at really happy with how they were in this episode, because Laurel and Hardy were proactive in this episode. They also wanted to help solve the mystery. They helped Daphne and Velma when they needed help from Bigfoot. They helped try to capture Bigfoot. Mainly because, now that they were bellhops, they felt like they had a sense of duty to keep their guests safe and, help find their guests. And Crabtree was one of their guests. So when he went missing, Laurel and Hardy felt a sense of duty to go help them. And so that showed a good side to Laurel and Hardy and how they were good human beings, just like the gang, and wanted to help solve the mystery. Not only that, the dynamic between Laurel and Hardy was hilarious. I love Laurel and Hardy's dynamic in this episode. They did steal the thunder from Shaggy and Scooby humor-wise, but I think that was okay because they more than made up for it. Hardy was kind of like the straight, proper man that always was trying to be prim and proper, always saying, big words, trying to act like he was, of higher echelons, higher class. And Laurel was more down to earth, less serious, and was very childlike in nature. And their dynamic between each other were very funny. I love when Laurel would just speak normally, and Hardy would hate it. He would hate Laurel just using normal words and being like, "We're just bellhops," or "We're just looking for jobs." It was hilarious. But also they had a lot of good physical gags like they're known for in this episode. We got to see a lot of great physical gags between the two of them. So I thought they were hilarious, especially at the end. I laughed hard when Hardy got pissed at Laurel for saying that they were bellhops. It was just so funny. I found them very funny in this episode. They played off each other well, and they were proactive in the mystery. Not only that, but I felt like they had great chemistry with Fred, Shaggy, and Scooby. They had amazing chemistry with the male members of the gang. Not so much the female members, because Daphne and Velma didn't really do much. But Laurel and Hardy really did play off of Fred, Shaggy, and Scooby well. Specifically, Hardy felt more comfortable with Fred, and Laurel felt comfortable with Shaggy and Scooby. But they still played off each other very well. There were moments where Laurel and Hardy liked the other pair as well. I thought overall the pair had great chemistry with Fred, Shaggy, and Scooby. They were funny together. They had a great dynamic and made up a bulk of the humor of this episode. And they were proactive and brave and wanted to help solve the mystery like Fred, Shaggy, and Scooby. So I thought they were great guest stars. They were a lot of fun, and I think they were one of the better guest stars in the new Scooby Doo movies. So they did everything they needed to do in this episode. They were fantastic guest stars. Then we have the villain of the episode, which is the Ghost of Bigfoot. The Ghost of Bigfoot was actually kind of menacing and a little bit intimidating due to his size, but I also found him very cool and entertaining, not just because he fit with the setting and the vibe of the episode, the snowy vibe of the episode, but he was also, I just liked his design, and I liked his shenanigans with Fred, Shaggy, Scooby, and Laurel and Hardy. Yes, he isn't scary. I don't consider him a scary villain, but I found him enjoyable in other aspects. His size did make him a bit intimidating and menacing in certain scenes. He definitely worked best in the dark, snowy atmosphere when it was nighttime and it was snowing. even though it was inside the lodge, it still worked. But he was still good. Like, I liked him as a villain. I liked the legend behind him about how he was this mountain man that died freezing in the snowstorm. And I just found him entertaining in different ways, and he was just cool and entertaining to watch. I found him fun to watch, and while he wasn't the scariest villain in the world, he had a lot of other merits going for him. And so to me, the Ghost of Bigfoot is definitely a very entertaining and cool villain that has a great design, but he also is a bit intimidating and menacing in moments, due to his size and due to the dark, snowy atmosphere of the episode. I liked his motive in this episode. So his motive was that he wanted to scare people away so he could continue to run his stolen car operation without being discovered. And I thought that was pretty unique and interesting. A stolen car operation isn't something we have seen before in Scooby-Doo. I guess you could say it's kind of similar to what Captain Cutler was doing with the yachts. You know, stealing them, repainting them, and then selling them. But this time it's cars, so it's a different vehicle. So maybe it's a little similar in that aspect, but I still would say it's at least a bit unique and a bit different. And I like the motive because we haven't seen that anyways in a long time, so I felt like it was a good motive to go back to. I liked that he was stealing cars, repainting them, putting on new license plates, and then selling them, supposedly, to whomever on the market. So, it was a good scheme. I liked his motive. I thought it was unique and interesting, and something new we hadn't seen in a while. Yeah, it's kind of a variation on Captain Cutler's motive, so I'm not going to deny that. So, it's not wholly original, but it's still a little bit different. And I would argue it still is unique enough to where it still works. And plus, it's been a while since we last saw Captain Cutler and his motive, and we hadn't had that type of motive since then. So I feel like this works. This is almost like this is a whole show after Captain Cutler, so I feel like enough time has passed to where they use the motive right. So you can reuse a motive well and tweak it if you wait for the right amount of time. You just don't want to use it too quick in succession. And I felt like they did a good job waiting on this motive and tweaking it a little bit. So the motive was good in my mind. I felt like it was fresh enough, and I enjoyed it. There were a really good number of suspects in this episode. We counted 4 suspects in the episode for one villain. That is great. That is fantastic. That's exactly what I want in Scooby-Doo. That's a good number of suspects. So we had Kelly Burgess, who was the owner and proprietor and manager who told the legend of Bigfoot. You had Jonathan Crabtree, who was the wheelchair-bound man who ended up being the ghost of Bigfoot. You had Jonathan Crabtree's chauffeur, who was making grunting noises, and we saw him in more than 2 scenes, I would say. It's still unclear on whether he was involved in the scheme. But because we didn't see him get arrested, I'm assuming maybe not. I don't know. It's never explained. And then you had Hans Eldowis, who had the physique of Bigfoot and, had footprints similar to Bigfoot. So, and he was very suspicious as well. So, all the suspects were good. They were equally suspicious for different reasons. And there was a good variety of suspects, so it made it good to guess who the villain would be. So 4 suspects are fantastic. Not only that, but they were equally suspicious. So it could have been any one of them, and I really like the number of suspects in this episode. I found the clues of the episode to be pretty good as well. So you had 2 clues really, which was the list of stolen license plate numbers and letters that that Scooby found and then Fred looked into. And then you had the film projector, which explained how Bigfoot could be outside and not leave footprints. So they were both good clues because the list of license plate numbers help point towards Bigfoot's motive, and the projector explained how decredited him being an actual ghost and made it more credible on that this was someone behind the mask. So I felt like both of them did a good job, forwarding the plot and forwarding the mystery or adventure of the episode. And so I found the clues to be good, even if they were small in number. I found them good enough because they did help point towards the motive of the villain and helped discredit the villain's facade as a ghost. So I found the clues to be good in this episode. Then we have the atmosphere of the episode, which I found really good. I was in suspense. The atmosphere was very suspenseful because of where the story was going to go next, and you didn't know exactly how this mystery/adventure was going to end for the gang. Where was this going to take them? So I was on the edge of my seat, not necessarily because Bigfoot was scary, but because you were in suspense on where the story was going to go, and how it was going to end, how it was going to end up. I also gotta say, love the dark, snowy atmosphere of the episode. Even though it's not there for the entire episode, I prefer the dark, snowy atmosphere over the light, daylight, snowy atmosphere. But the dark, snowy atmosphere is great. I love it. It fits the villain. It complements the villain and the setting. It's amazing. It's done well. And I find the snowy vibes and atmosphere to be very, very awesome. It just gives a nice feel to the episode. It complements everything else in the episode. So to me, despite the atmosphere not being spooky in nature or, filled with tension or suspense for the gang's safety, it was filled with suspense on where the story was going to go and how it was going to end. And it was filled with suspense when it was dark and snowy out because you didn't know where Bigfoot was and what he was going to do. He had this big, intimidating stature and he was a bit menacing, so we didn't know what he was going to do, how far he was going to take things. So I found the atmosphere to be good. I liked the vibe of it. It fit the setting. It complemented the villain well, and it made you interested in the story and the plot of the episode. You were engaged throughout the whole way because you wanted to know where the story was going to go and how it was going to end. So I found the atmosphere of the episode to be really well done. And then my final positive is I really liked the setting of the episode. So the setting was good because it had a lot of variety in the episode. So you had the main setting, which was the ski lodge. You had the junkyard. And then you had the sawmill. And if you want to count it, you also had the ski mountain where the gang went skiing. So there was a good variety, but I think the setting was good mostly. But the main setting of the episode was the ski lodge. And what made the setting good was because of its familiarity. Especially during the winter. This is a place you would go during the winter time if you want to enjoy winter activities and sports like skiing. But it also complemented the atmosphere of the episode and the villain of the episode because of where it was located and what purpose it was. Because it's a ski lodge and it's in Vermont, which is a cold place, the ghost of Bigfoot complements it because, he's a snowy type of villain. This is a winter type villain, and the atmosphere fits it because of, of the suspense it's filled with. Because of the dark, snowy atmosphere of it all. You really like that dark, snowy atmosphere. Because mainly because of the villain, but naturally because of the dark, snowy atmosphere and the setting itself. So I like the setting because of its familiarity. It complements the atmosphere and villain well. And it has a lot of variety. We don't stick around in the ski lodge for the whole time. We go to the ski mountain when the gang goes skiing. We go to the junkyard when the gang are investigating, the lead based on the stolen license plate numbers. And then the sawmill, which is where Bigfoot's hideout is and where he's doing all the, his stolen car operations. So I like the variety of the setting. I like that we got to go in different locations, but I think the setting was good because it fit what the episode was going for. This is a winter type episode, and the setting complemented it perfectly. So setting was great. I have no issues with it at all. Overall, guys, I would recommend this episode to fans and newcomers of the show. It's a really good episode that I really highly recommend. It's just held back by a few by like one or two weak elements, like mainly a lack of a mystery and the underutilization of Daphne and Velma and making them weak characters. Other than that, had those two things been fixed, this could have been a really good episode. This could have been a really, 5 out of 5 episode. But honestly, it's a great episode to watch during the winter time. If you want an episode around Christmas time or just in the winter and you want like a cozy winter episode, I would say this is the kind of episode you would want. It fulfills everything you want out of a winter episode. And we get to see the gang in the winter outfits, which is something I forgot to mention, which is I love seeing the gang in their winter outfits again. I love when their winter outfits and the winter setting and the winter vibes. This is a perfect episode to watch in the winter. Which makes it weird that I watched in July, which is the opposite. It's hot out. But it still works. It's a good episode, even if it isn't winter. But it definitely works best during the winter. Because if you just want a comfortable episode, a Scooby-Doo episode to watch during the winter, this is a good one to watch. It has great guest stars, and the gang are all done well, and it has an enjoyable, likable villain that fits fits the vibe and setting of the episode, and it's just nice and cozy. It's a nice and cozy episode to watch during the winter season. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Please give a like if you did. Comment down below your thoughts on the episode. Do you like this episode? Are you like me? Do you consider it one of the best episodes of the new Scooby Doo movies? And consider it a good episode, not just for the winter, but just overall, like a really enjoyable episode. Do you hate this episode? I'd be interested in that as well. Do you not find this episode really good? Like, is it not your kind of episode? Do you think there's more problems with it than I pointed out, or that you see that I don't see? Or are you somewhere in the middle, where you think it's okay, but it's not good or bad? I'm curious for your thoughts, so let me know. And subscribe for more Scooby-Doo content like this, or if you're just interested in any of my other content. I'll have plenty more Scooby-Doo reviews on the way for the summer, for my 2024 summer specials and Scooby-Doo's The Focus, and Scooby Month, which will be in September, where I dedicate a whole month, for Scooby. And Scooby-Doo is the main franchise that I like to tackle on my channel, so look forward to many Scooby-Doo reviews to come, because I love talking Scooby. It's my favorite franchise. I'm a diehard Scooby-Doo fan. I love, this franchise means a lot to me, and Scooby-Doo is one of my favorite franchises of all time. You can also follow me on Facebook, where I have discussions about things we talk about on both my channels, and Twitch, where I hope to live stream in the future. In my next video, I will continue my 2024 summer special with a re-review of Season 1, Episode 6 of Scooby-Doo Where Are You? What the Heck's Going On? Which is the Elias Kingston episode. So if you want to hear my thoughts on that, join me next time for that. But of course, after that, we will continue my reviews of the new Scooby-Doo movies with Season 1, Episode 11 of the new Scooby-Doo movies, titled The Ghost of the Red Baron, guest starring the Three Stooges. That's right, the Three Stooges are coming back a second time. It's been a while, it's been like 10 episodes, but they're coming back. And after a really rocky start to the new Scooby-Doo movies and a disappointing first outing, the Three Stooges have a second chance to impress me and make me actually, have a good episode for them. I've not heard many great things about the Three Stooges second episode, and I'm told, I think Scooby-Doo fans don't consider that one as good as the first one, consider it as bad as the first one, so I don't have high hopes, but the Three Stooges have a second opportunity to impress me and to win me over, so hopefully they'll continue the streak of good episodes, and hopefully they will deliver a good episode and redeem themselves after the poor start of Season 1 of, the new Scooby-Doo movies. So if you want to know my thoughts on the second Three Stooges episode, then join me after that. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, peace out.
Scooby Doo, looking for you. Scooby Doo, where are you? All the stars are here, waiting for you. Couldn't have a show without you. Scooby, Scooby.